The versus Battle Wiki situation is crazy. So recently, there was a big debate on Twitter over Bakugo from My Hero Academia versus Reize from Chainsaw Man. This spawned a whole bunch of memes, animations, and fan art with people showing their own agendas between who would win between the two explosion users. One meme that stood out from the rest was this picture depicting Marco from One Piece asking Tanjiro to go handle Reize. This is peak Slander, showing that a character generally considered weak by the general versus battle community like Tanjiro is considered to be 7B, while Reize is even weaker than that at 8C. But a lot of you may be asking, 8C, 7B, what do those numbers and letters mean? Is it like class 1A for My Hero Academia? Obviously no. These numbers are known as the tiering system values on the website known as the Versus Battle Wiki. I've talked about this website before, but it acts as a massive database to contain all the power scaling information on many different characters as possible. You have everything from Star Wars to Crazy Frog on there, and each profile contains the background information on the characters, their abilities, and most importantly, info on how strong they are. In order to make things more streamlined and uniform across all profiles, Versus Battle Wiki enacted a system of sorts to keep track of how strong characters are using numbers and letters. At the very bottom, you have tier 11 characters. These characters are ones that are not just weaker than a normal person within their story, but infinitesimally weaker than a person, often literally being two-dimensional in nature. On the other end, you have tier 0 characters. Simply put, these are the strongest characters in fiction, quite literally unbounded by any concept of limitations multiple times over. These characters are in effect truly omnipotent. Then every other tier is everything in between those two massive extremes. While the numbers represent large tiers, the letters are then used to divide them up into subcategories. So for example, tier 6 contains 6A, 6B, and 6C, which is continent, country, and island level, respectively. So finally, looking back to that Tanjiro meme, this meme reintroduced the scaling system to the general anime community and where Versus Battle Wiki has subjectively placed some characters. This led to the birth of the According to Versus Battle Wiki meme that has taken over TikTok and Twitter in the past couple of days. It takes two characters, one of which is usually unexpectedly powerful, and puts them up against a character generally deemed equally strong by the Versus Battle Wiki, showing what an epic fight between them would look like according to the Versus Battle Wiki. We've seen fights of Homer Simpson versus Muzan, Buford versus Sukuna, and Goku versus a hamster. But are these memes actually correct? Are these fights actually as close, or is there massive amounts of missing context? Today, we're going to break down some of the funniest of these Versus Battle Wiki memes to see if they actually hold up. If you like this kind of stuff, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's jump right in. So let's begin with one that is definitely not correct, and that one is Tanjiro, Denji, and Yuji versus the Deep from The Boys. As funny as it is to imagine that the biggest loser of the 7 can take on some of Shonen's most recent popular protagonists, these stats are simply not accurate. While yes, the Deep is probably like building level, all 3 of the anime MCs have long surpassed that tier, and it even says so on their profiles. At this point in all of these stories, these guys are like town level to city level power at worst, and could probably solo the boys verse with low difficulty, especially when Homelander's most consistent scaling only potentially puts him at city level. Another meme that once again misinterprets values puts Gojo up against the Fire Wizard from Clash Royale, saying in fact that the wizard is even more powerful than the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer. But again, this one has some major mistakes. Firstly, Gojo's tier as shown is actually higher than the wizard. 8A is actually higher than 8B, so this fight wouldn't be close anyways. Regardless, this isn't Gojo's actual strength, as at worst, he's more like town to city level through some arguments put him far higher. Regardless, nowhere on Versus Battle Wiki is it implying that the Clash of Clans guy is capable of rivaling Gojo in power, as funny as that would be. On the subject of Jujutsu Kaisen, the Buford versus Sukuna meme might be one of the funniest for one simple reason. Buford doesn't even have a profile on the Versus Battle Wiki right now. That's right, the stats stats in this meme are completely made up entirely for slander purposes, and that's hilarious. Now, the Phineas and Ferb show does have a profile on the Versus Battle Wiki, and the funny thing is, most of their inventions are easily strong enough to defeat Sukuna in a fight. Saying he would fight evenly with the cast of the show is being extremely nice to the King of Curses. For example, just one time, Phineas and Ferb made a robot that could envelop the entire galaxy with a force field in mere seconds. While they usually don't make weapons, the moment Phineas and Ferb get tasked with taking down Sukuna, it would be one of the easiest things in the world for them, as they could make inventions stronger than what Sukuna could possibly be able to comprehend. Now, let's talk about Homer versus Muzan, because this one is especially funny. It's pretty easily understandable why Muzan would be city level, and I've talked about before in other videos, like when I made him fight Michael Jackson. But the main issue here is Homer. No way he's that strong, right? Well, ignoring the Family Guy crossover when he literally got nuclear superpowers, Homer actually has shown one consistent ability, and that is that he can be extremely loud. In one episode, Homer lets out a doe that is so loud it literally cracks the earth apart, causes a shockwave and earthquakes across Springfield. That, when calculated, comes out to about city level in power. Does that mean he can actually fight Muzan? No. This is why the context of the tiering matters. No one is claiming that Homer is going around punching harder than a nuclear bomb. It's just that in some situations, he can cause that level of destruction. It's also not taking into account speed. Sukuna is obviously faster than the yellow guy from Fortnite. Another really popular meme that once again takes away massive context is this Dipper versus Invincible meme, in which Dipper apparently massively stomps the half-Viltrumite superhero billions of times over with universal power. If you think for a second, this obviously isn't true. The reason why Dipper is considered universal at all on the wiki is that in one choose-your-own-adventure story that isn't even in the show, Dipper gets a gun that can cause the universe to collapse in on itself when he uses it. So yes, in this one singular story, Dipper temporarily has a weapon that, if it hit Invincible, would be capable of killing him and everyone else in the Invincible universe. However, in no other situation, which is standard fight conditions, is Dipper actually capable of doing this. 99.99999% of the time, Invincible is just blitzing and one-shotting, which should have been obvious. Now, I think the single most hilarious example of someone missing context, and I think just not knowing how the wiki works, is one that put Hulk up against Joshu from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, saying they are both 9B. While that's probably accurate for Joshu and his stand Nut King call, the stats for Hulk aren't even Hulk's stats. They're the values for Bruce Banner, the normal human scientist, and even then, it gets values higher than 9B. Hulk, in fact, is at worst multiversal, and is realistically outerversal in power, and would literally solo all of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures with a single punch. Yes, even Gold Experience Requiem. Finally, we get to the thumbnail and the reason I made this video. Goku versus random Kirby side characters. Now, there have been multiple memes of this. Goku versus both Rick and Gooey from Kirby have been turned into one of these meme fights. And unlike the others we've been going through up until now, this one is kind of just correct. Sometimes we need to look past the silliness of the situation and admit that a character is just really strong. The Kirby universe is actually a sprawling multiverse of interconnected alternate dimensions and universes, and there have been villains that have threatened to destroy or even cause the collapse of all of these universes, with Kirby obviously stopping them and scaling similarly to them. Now, in subsequent adventures, characters like Rick can just fight alongside Kirby against even greater threats, therefore making him low multiversal just like Kirby is, and just like Goku is. Now, being honest, scaling-wise, Rick would actually be even further into that multiversal tier than Goku, as the Kirby cosmology probably has more universes in it than Dragon Ball, but I'm not an expert, so I'm fine just calling them equals to each other in power, just as the meme describes. So, Why did I make this video? Well, almost every single time there's a power scaling meme, once again, people come out of the woodwork to say that this shows or proves that power scaling sucks and doesn't make sense and that power scalers don't know what they're talking about. As a power scaling channel, I feel like it's important to say no, power scaling does make sense a lot of the time. It's just a lot of people get swayed by hype moments, aura, and character designs. They see a matchup and go, no way this silly looking guy is stronger than this super strong guy that I personally like. Power scaling must be stupid. For once, the issue is not with versus Battle Wiki, although it has many other problems. The issue is that people can't read or genuinely believe memes without actually fact checking them. Of course, I could keep going through the dozens and dozens of these hilarious memes, but at the end of the day, it boils down to either 1, yes, the meme is correct and the character is that strong. 2, no, the meme is wrong and they aren't displaying the correct value. Or 3, no, the tiering of the character is extremely contextual if you actually read the page, or the versus Battle Wiki just got it wrong. These memes are just for fun, but I simply can't let it slide when they start being used to justify taking an anti-power scaling stance. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. As always, thank you to my members for supporting the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.